This story was submitted by Sarah Maleby-Holland. My best friends and I had just gotten back from church. It was a really hot day in mid-July, and we decided to go swimming since it was the last free day before band camp started. There were a total of 10 of us: me, my brother, his girlfriend, and 7 other friends. We went to a popular hangout spot where you could go swimming or even jump off the bluffs. There was also 2 other guys there who weren't part of our group, but I guess they were just trying to have a good time like the rest of us. We were there for a while, and the boys were trying to get this rope that was tied to the bridge above us. Our friend Jeff jumped in first, and he had no trouble getting out of the water. Then Austin jumped in, and he also had no trouble getting out. Then Seth and James jumped in. They were only in the water for mere moments before I heard the screams that haunt my dreams to this day. James started screaming for help, saying that he was drowning. Seth heard his cries and started swimming to him, and Jeff and Austin jumped in too. James was panicking, and now both Seth and James were drowning. At this point, we were all freaking out, and one of us called 911, along with a family who had saw what was going on and heard my screams. Austin then took hold of James and had him calmed enough to get him within 3 feet of the shore. But sadly, James let go and was swept away with the rising current. I knew it was time for me to make a phone call to my mom that we would never forget. "Hey, Bug, what's up?" "Mommy, we lost him." "You lost who?" At this point, my mom is thinking of my brother because neither of us know how to swim that well. "Mama, we lost James." And then my mom said that I lost touch of what I was doing, and I started screaming his name through tears. By the time she got my attention, she was already in the car, racing behind the ambulance and the police. I went to where everyone was standing, still trying to get Austin out of the water. The 2 guys who weren't from our group saw us in a panic, found out the cops were coming, and they booked it out of there. A week later, they found James's body 6 miles upstream. For weeks, we were accused of killing him, but nothing like that ever happened. To this day, I have a massive fear of water, and I still have flashbacks of James's screams, and I still see him in the water. It's like a picture in my head. There will be a link to the news article covering this tragic story in the description below. I'm a 35-year-old recently divorced man, and I've decided that I need to get back in shape. I started going to the gym again, and jogging. I work a 9-to-5 job, so sometimes my workouts have to be done later at night. As most people can relate, 9-to-5 jobs sometimes turn into 9 to whenever you get all your work done, sometimes as late as 9 or 10 p.m. On this night, I had finished up work at around 8 p.m. and got home about a half hour later. It was a Wednesday, and because the last couple of nights at work had been equally late nights, I hadn't made it to the gym since that prior Saturday. So I decided that night to go, and afterwards, I would go for a run in town. In my very suburban town, there's a main road that is about a mile down and a mile back, and it's bookended by both of the main drags that cut through town. So pretty much, everyone from town, throughout the course of the day, will either run, walk their dogs, or ride bikes, or skate on this street. At a bare minimum, the entire town will at least drive on this road once a day. What I'm trying to get at is, it's heavily traveled, and you often see people you know. Hey, Walt! One of my childhood friend's fathers was out walking his dog. Hello, Sandy. A mother whose son is in school with my nephew. Joan! How's Joe? I just saw Mary's Facebook video with your grandkids swimming. They're adorable and getting so big. It almost becomes more of a social event than a workout, but I think that's great. What's unusual about this road is at the beginning, or west end of the street. All the houses are estates, and rather expensive. Everyone has beautiful landscaping, and their lawns are all well manicured. But when you get down to the end of the road, the east side of the avenue, well, that's the other side of town. A church, a closed down school, lesser maintained houses, and a few little stores and offices. It's remarkable how you can almost watch the quality of residences diminish as you make your way down the road. It goes from expensive, well-manicured homes to almost what could be considered an industrial section, all in a span of a mile. But as I said, near the end of the block, there are a few very poor-looking homes, one of which is the focus of where my story begins. It was old-looking, had faded gray paint on the aluminum siding, tall grass, and had a chain-link fence with a "Beware of Dogs" sign. The front lawn was littered with junk and car parts, and it had a very dark front porch. As I take notice of this house, I fail to realize that my pace slows a bit on my jog. I wipe the sweat from my face, and that's when I feel an intense sting on my right leg. I jump, as it feels like I was stung by a hornet. What the fuck? I look down, and I see green paint, made only visible by the streetlights. I had been shot by a paintball, and oh man, do those things hurt. I pick my head up, look into the darkness, knowing the direction, but trying to figure out specifically where it came from. That's when I hear the laughter of at least two people. Does someone think this is funny? Because I'm not laughing. As I say this, the laughter intensifies, mocking me, and I hear a voice whisper, "Do it again." As I hear this, I decide to pick up my run again, and as I do, another paintball hits me, this time in the back of my shoulder, and then once again, on my right elbow. A few more whiz past me, and hit the street or the sidewalk near me. Now I'm really pissed. I'm sure it's just a teenage prank, but when you go paintballing, they make you wear protection for a reason. I stop, sigh a bit, and turn, making my way up to the person or persons' residence. As I walk up to the house, I say, "I know all of you probably think this is a pretty funny prank, but I don't see the humor. If you want to be men, come on out and we can have a nice talk. Just me and all of you." From out of the shadows of the dark porch, I see the red glow of a cigarette. At least, I think it's a cigarette at first, but a second later, my sense of smell reveals that it's clearly weed. A guy in his late 40s, scruffy, complete trash, comes forward, wearing a filthy pair of shorts and a black t-shirt. "I'm sorry about my son and his friends. I'll take care of this," the man says, calmly, then yells out, "Billy, open fire!" Upon the order, all I hear is the loud, rapid sound of firing paintball guns. And amazingly, they were all aimed poorly, because they missed me with every shot as I made my way down to the end of the road and took a left. The police station is literally 2 blocks down, so I decide I'll just run to it and show them the physical evidence of what took place. As I get a few more paces away from the house, and what I believe is out of range, I hear the gate on the chain link fence open and quickly slam shut. I take cover behind a mailbox and look back towards the house. I see an old white town car load up with what I thought were 5 men before it tears ass down the street, heading my way. I start sprinting to the police station, and I can feel that my new acquaintances are driving slowly behind me. As I'm about 100 yards away, they pull up right next to me, and I will admit, it freaked me out. I stop and look at the windows, but I couldn't make out any faces, only silhouettes. And that's when I hear one of them say my name, followed by, "Don't even think about going into that police station and telling those pigs on us." To add insult to injury, they fire a paintball that hits me square in my chest. I'm pissed, but part of me thinks, how dumb are these guys? I clearly know where they live. I walk into the police station and tell my story to an officer on the front desk. He asked me if I got the license plate, but honestly, I didn't think to look at it when I was getting shot at. The officer gets the info from me on the house, and after researching it, he tells me that it's been foreclosed on, and that for well over 2 years, no one has lived there. That makes the poor condition of the house make a lot more sense to me. He says they'll check it out and get back to me, and offers to have an officer give me a ride home, which I accept. On the ride home, the officer explains to me that unfortunately, unless it happens again and they catch whoever did this in the act, they will probably never know for sure who shot me. He suggests that I keep an eye on my home also, being that whoever did this to me knew my name and possibly knew where I lived. He also warned me that they could potentially think it would be funny to keep up the harassment. At the time, I had no idea how right he would be about that. He suggested that I get a GoPro camera and just point it out the front window of my home at night. A very good idea, as it would turn out. He closes with suggesting that I don't run that way for a little bit also. That night, I shower and lay down to go to sleep, when I hear something that springs me to my second floor bedroom window. Voices. And then the sound of several people jumping into my in-ground pool. I rush downstairs and flip my back porch light on, and just barely see one person running from my pool to the side of my house. I continue to scan my yard, but no one is there. I spin around and rush to my front door and look outside. Just as I do, I can see 3 guys running down my lawn and beyond my line of sight past my neighbor's house, maniacally laughing as they do. I walk outside and run down my driveway, metal baseball bat in hand, and I look around, but these guys are long gone. I turn around, walking back up my driveway, and I see a white envelope taped to my front door. Thinking crime scene, I don't even touch it. I just call the police. Again. I sit outside with my bat, waiting for an officer to show, which he does. 35 minutes later. It's roughly 11:30 p.m. now. He asks if I touched the envelope, and I say no. He calls for a detective to come and take a look at it, and 10 minutes later, one shows up in an unmarked car. The detective puts on gloves, and then grabs the envelope, and carefully opens it up, being very concerned for the potential of a biohazard. It's just a folded piece of paper, but what it reads freaks me out. Check your tool shed. The detective and the officer walk to my backyard and tell me to stand back as they open it, guns drawn. When they do, there's a dead raccoon, covered in paintball shots, with a note underneath its lifeless body. They again open the note with the same care, and it reads, "We told you not to go to the pigs. You're fucked now." And then it said my name. They also had trashed several of my items in there. This prompts the detective to actually call for backup, as they are taking this as a legitimate threat and want to see if they can find any prints. I should add, the town I had jogged in and reported the paintball shooting earlier, and the town I live in, are two different townships with two different police departments. This department, the one at my house, is aware of something that the other wasn't, apparently. A few nights ago, a mother and a father were jogging at night in a park, and they were passing by a white town car, and a group of guys inside yelled out at them, "Your daughter gives great head," and said their names, before shooting them with paintballs. They reported it, and are waiting to hear back. It was a similar group of guys, the same car, and the same actions with the paintball guns. Time goes by. It's now Friday, and I haven't slept very well in 2 days, thinking I would be the victim of another random act of bullshit from these assholes. I get home from work Friday, and as I pull up to my house, I see that it has been vandalized. Someone spray painted my garage door with a hanging stick figure, like a hangman, and the puzzle has 3 letters. The first letter is Y, and the last is a U. So now they shot me, and I guess they want to hang me. Perfect. I, of course, call the police. They arrive, question the neighbors, who naturally either weren't home or saw nothing. They take a statement, and then they actually help me clean the paint off. The officer helping me says, "Hey, this must have just happened, being the paint is still wet enough to be removed." The GoPro! His remark prompts me to remember taking the other officer up on his suggestion, and I had borrowed my cousin's GoPro the day before. We look at it, and now we have video of 2 guys walking up to my house in broad daylight and spray painting it. Problem was, you don't see them actually spray paint it, and they were wearing V for Vendetta masks. The officer takes the camera from me, well, from my cousin, and I guess they have something to go on. One step closer. Saturday, my friend Mike asked me to go to dinner with him, but I feel like I need to sit home and guard my house. He offers to drive, so it'll look like I'm home, but I really don't want to leave my house unattended, so we decide instead to have a barbecue at my house and have a few beers. We were sitting in my backyard, cooking up a couple of burgers and having a beer, when I see something out of my peripheral vision that makes me almost shit my pants. I see a guy in a V for Vendetta mask walking from the side of my house. I yell out, "Shit! Mike, watch out!" The guy doesn't do anything. He just does a one-fingered follow me motion. I will follow you. In fact, I'm gonna grab the tongs I use for meat and plunge them into your head if I can get over to you fast enough. Mike says, "Let's kick his ass," and grabs a folding chair. This, believe it or not, scares the guy into running to my front yard. We run after him, and he sprints towards, you guessed it, the white town car, and it's parked in the street right in front of my house. I run for the car, and the V points behind me, making me look over my right shoulder. As I do, another guy in another V-mask is standing near my car on the driveway, and he bashes in the windshield with a tire iron. We run after him, and he sprints off around the block. We decide, forget it, let's go after the town car instead. We start running towards it, and one of the other guys in the back seat, wearing the same V-mask, rolls down the window and shows me that he's got a gun. I have no idea if it's real or another paintball gun, but it looks real. We don't mess around, and we hightail it back to my backyard and then into my house. But this time, Mike got a look at the license plate. He immediately writes down the number as I look outside. The car is gone. Mike and I, once again, call the police, and they arrive in about 6 to 7 minutes. We give them the plate number, but naturally, those plates are stolen. Another dead end. Finally, I guess I'm becoming a priority, and the police agree to stake out my house. They sit down my block in a black Ford Explorer, which you would never know is a police vehicle, for 2 days. Monday night, I get a knock at the door, and I slowly look outside. It's an undercover officer. I know, because I know all of them by now. I open my door for him, and he tells me that a person was walking up to my house with a letter, and it was a 15-year-old kid. The kid explains that he was given $150 to just knock on my door and hand me a letter, and he describes the guys who paid him and lets us know that they met just 10 minutes ago at the 7-Eleven by my house. They told the kid that they were with a law firm and were trying to serve me with legal documents, but couldn't do it themselves because I know their faces and wouldn't answer for them. The kid then says, "You know, like the Pineapple Express, man." The kid's story turns out to be legit, but one detail they overlooked. The 7-Eleven has cameras. The detective goes to the 7-Eleven and looks at the footage. It turns out to be grainy, but this time, we got the real plates. Now the police know who the owner of the town car really is. They link it back to a guy that I've never heard of, who surprisingly lives not too far from me. The officers go to the house and arrest the man. It turns out, it's the old man I had originally saw the first night I got shot with the paintballs. He was home alone, but luckily, a few minutes later, the other 4 guys were pulled over about 2 blocks away in the town car. One of the other guys in the group is a kid I went to school with, Eric. A kid who used to get bullied a lot, and believe it or not, I used to stick up for. It turns out, these guys were all living together in this house. Our theories were completely wrong. None of them were teenagers at all. All of these guys are ages ranging from 35 through 48. But here's the really scary part. The part that makes me lose sleep. Inside their house, they found a meth lab, an arsenal of weapons, and over $50,000 in cash, and a dead homeless man. They had chained him to a wall by his neck and shoulders and used him as target practice, painting him up to look like a clown. Above him, written on the wall, were the words, "Shoot the geek." The homeless man had been dead for several days, and it was determined that he was killed by a combination of internal injuries, starvation, and from bleeding out. These monsters had cut off his hands and one of his feet. These sick freaks let a person starve in their basement while they beat him to death and dismembered him. The police determined that this was most likely not their first time they had murdered someone, with 98% statistical certainty. From what I derived, if they would have gotten me captured in their home, it wouldn't have been their last time either. When word got out that the kid I went to high school with was linked to this story, it prompted a lot of people to talk about him, and sadly me, on social media. Several people I hadn't spoken to since graduation started contacting me. One being a girl that I had went to school with, who claimed that back in 2000, Eric had raped her. It was dismissed as a typical he said, she said case. I, like everyone else, never knew this happened. She thanked me for helping to put him away. Another person, Kyle, had told me that him and Eric had gotten into a bar fight back in 2003. Eric had started the fight over a game of pool, and Kyle believed that after that evening, Eric was damaging his car at night, keying it and flattening his tires, but he could never prove it. Eric is serving a staggering, but appropriate, 52-year sentence for felony murder, home invasion, criminal stalking, criminal trespassing, accessory to murder, vandalism, and driving a car with a stolen license plate, as well as several other charges. If he survives prison, he will be 87 when he breathes his first breath of freedom again. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you can catch all of my future content. If you'd like to talk to me on a more personal level, make sure you go like my Facebook page. Feel free to send me a message on there, even just to say hi. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.